Okay, now it's time to kind of take everything we've done so far and start applying it logically based upon what really needs to happen. I find sometimes, again, I know this is all new to you, and you're trying to find a one shot fits all type thing, and but it doesn't really work that way, in the real world. In the real world, you got to apply and modify and so on. What I'm trying to say is you have everything now at your disposal to write a very sophisticated CRUD application. But there's going to be these little things that come up that you need to think through. And once again, you have all the tools, but now you got to apply these tools a little bit differently. And I'm going to cover a couple of them in this video. I think they're rather simple. Of course, I've been doing this for a long, long time. But I think for a new student, you might look at it going, how am I supposed to do that? The one piece would be if we look at our database, when we add a new student to a course, right? And that's what we're going to be doing, right? We add new students to courses. How is it? How do we do that? All right. How would we add a new student to a course? Because to do so, we got to add another row here, correct? We got another into our database. So we need to be able to do that programmatically in our application to make that happen. It's not very hard, but I just want to make sure that you're aware of it. Another thing that happens from time to time is that you're doing two things at one time. Meaning, you may come across an application and where you're going to, for lack of a better example, we'll use this example, you're adding a student and at the same time, you're adding them to a course, all under the same event. How do you handle that? Meaning, we don't have the student's primary key, and so we have to add them, get the primary key, and then add them to the course. So that's what this video is all about, and I kind of want to show you what I'm talking about in regards to this. So let's get back to our application. And so I've kind of modified this a little bit more, added a few more buttons, and I only added really two more. And in this regard, I sit back and I have add student to course and add student and to course. That's what I mean is we're going to add a student to the course, an existing student to the course, and then we're going to add a new student and also add them to the course. That makes sense? Two different pieces here. It might make like a little more sense when we actually get into it. So let's go ahead and run these. So I show you what we're trying to accomplish here. Um, all right, let's get over to statistics. And for sake, right now, we got James Jones that's in two courses, right? And so on. So if I wanted to put James Jones into another course, I can say add student to course. And really, all we're talking about here is a couple of drop downs in this case, right? A couple of combo boxes, one with the student in there and one with the course in there. And what we want to do is basically add them together. And so all I'm doing in this case is adding, let's go ahead and put James Jones and we'll put him in, I don't know, database. I don't know if he's taking that yet or not, okay? And so with that said, I'm going to take James Jones and put him in the database and press submit. I just wanted to show you this. I'll take this out before I post this, but here's the insert, and you see what's going on here. We're in student to student courses 6, okay, which is the next primary key, so we got to deal with that a little bit. 1 is going to be James Jones, and 4 is the course number. So we got to get those foreign keys coming from this combo box. And again, we've already done that, right? So it's just another approach, and so that's what I'm trying to tell you right now is that you got to think a little bit as you apply, but for the most part, we've already done it. So if you're looking at this going, well, Bob, that's pretty easy, I'm happy. I'm glad it's easy. It's supposed to be. And as you see here, I said James Jones and been added to the database SQL. Cool. All right. Another scenario, and then we'll go in and look at the code. The other scenario is adding a new student, but at the same time, we're going to add them to the course. So what I mean by that is, and again, this is an example. Since I'm using this, I'm going to use it as an example. But every once in a while, I have to do this where I'm adding to one table, and I got to get that primary key because it's going to be a foreign key into another table. And so this is that example. I'm not sure it's the greatest example, but hopefully you get the idea that we're going to add a new student and also add them into the course, okay, into a course. You might say, well, the students might be in 5 courses. That's fine, but this is their initial course we're adding them into. We'll just say it that way. And so let's go ahead and add a student here. I don't know, Will Smith. And I don't know why, I'm just giggling. I don't know why I came up with that name, but 999 somewhere. And let's see, we'll keep him in Cincinnati, 45202, something like this. His social security number. I'm not going to worry about date of birth right now. And then we're going to go ahead and add him into .NET programming. Well, it doesn't make any sense. Let's say we're going to add him into .NET programming. And so we're going to do 2 things. And based upon our database, what needs to happen, right? We got to sit back and we got to add Will Smith into the students table. And then once we do that, we got to grab his brand new primary key, because then I'm going to add him to a course, and I got to have his primary key to do so. Make sense? Again, nothing hard, just something you got to think through. And once you do it one time, you got it. But every once in a while, these come up, and I think it's important enough that I kind of bring it to your attention at this point in time. So we'll go ahead and add this. Here we are adding Will Smith. Okay, again, just my message box. Again, you wouldn't have this in your program. When you hand it in, I would highly recommend you always have your message boxes up so you can make sure your string looks correct. Okay, so everything looks good there. Will Smith's been added. And then here's the insert. It's going to be right below it where we have 7. 7 is going to be Will Smith's new primary key. And then 1 is going to be his one's going to be his course he's in. Okay, and then Will has been added to .NET programming. Yay us. Okay, and if we go over and look at statistics, we now see that James Jones has 3 courses, and we see that Will Smith is in 1 course. Beautiful. All right, let's look at the code for this real fast. And so let's go. So add student to course. This one right here, whoops, I'm sorry. That's what I hit wrong. I did hit that wrong. I'm sorry. We'll get back to, I'll find it right here in a second. Let's see, I have this under student course, form student course. Here we go. What I did is I loaded my combo boxes. Once again, you should know how to do this. A lot of cutting and pasting. I hope you've starting to get tired of the term cutting and pasting, but it really truly was that. A data table for each one of them, 1 for student, 1 for course, but everything else at this point in time is remaining the same. Okay? If you are getting bored of hearing me say that and you go, oh yeah, I know how to do that now, yay, that's great stuff. All right, so what did I do here? So I went ahead and I have the primary keys for each. So I went ahead and I got these primary keys from my selected value. I put them into a couple of variables. I didn't necessarily have to do that. I just decided to do that here. I could have just left them here and utilized that later on. I went ahead and had to get the max, once again, the max primary key that's already in the student course table, right? So I had, because I needed to see what was there before, and I need to add 1 to it to get to the next primary key. We've already done to that. All right, we already done that before. If it's the very first row, it will be 1. If not, it's going to be the next primary key. Once again, what I'm saying there is that let's just pretend it's a brand new database and nobody's been added to courses yet, and that's why the primary key would be 1 if I did a call to the database and nothing is there. That makes sense? That's what this is saying right here. Okay? And then I just very simply do an insert. In this case here, I'm inserting my primary key, my student foreign key, and my course foreign key. And as you see, there's no single quotes around it. Make sure the string looks correct, and that's good to go. And that's how you add that. Pretty simple, right? All right. Hopefully that makes sense. And again, the only reason I really bring it up is because you haven't really added anything to a many table before, and I wanted to make sure you knew how to do so. All right. The final one here is add student and to a course at the same time. All right. Same type thing. If we get into the code, I loaded my combo boxes. Basically, this was a cut and paste to add student. And then I just added 1 more combo box at the end, which was my course. So I kind of copied that over from the previous screen I just showed you. Okay. So once again, cutting and pasting. Took me all but a couple seconds to do so. I always say it takes a couple seconds to do so, But in doing that, I also write down the steps in which I need to do things. I mean, so to make this happen, I'll sit back and say, okay, I got to load these things. I got to load this. I have this little checklist. I always design stuff first. Makes it a lot easier. I want you to think about what you need to do first and then apply it. Sometimes new students want to dive in and without thinking and hoping something works, and then something doesn't work, and I get a call or an email saying this doesn't work, and it's because you didn't really think through it first. Sit down, at least at a minimum for this, write down the steps that needs to happen to make these things work. Okay. I went ahead and copied pretty much a lot of the stuff from, I did everything in regards to add student. Okay, everything's the same here from adding student. And I added a student, and once added a student, what I did is I went back to that student table. Okay, so I already added, right? Okay, so I added a student, and I went right back to it, and I found that primary key. You don't see +1 here. All I did was go get the max student ID. Does that make sense? So I'm not coming up with a new primary key. I wanted to see what that primary key was we just added. And so I went to the very last row that was added, and that's what I got here. Okay? In some cases, this isn't a perfect way of doing it. In our scenario, it'll be great because we only got one user doing it. But if we're working in a more robust environment like, Amazon, where billions of people were hitting it at the same time, we don't want to add a primary key and somebody's adding another primary key the nanosecond afterwards, and also we picked up the wrong one. That is a possibility. Later on in the course, I will teach you a better way of doing this. Okay, but right now, I think this spells it out nice and neat for you. So I got that new student primary key. I went ahead and I read it, and I just added it to a variable so I can actually use it. I went and got my max new student primary key. Okay, that's student courses, whatever the max was on there, added one to it to come up with a new primary key for that table. This is now cut and paste once again from what I just showed you. And I went ahead and added this to my piece. So it's really a cut and paste of both pieces going through. The only really new piece here was I had to get the primary key from the new student we just added. That's not the code there. Here it is right here. Okay? Take a look at this code. Make sure you understand it. Once again, me going up and down, sometimes I know that's probably hard to follow on a video. So the best thing to do is go print off this code or go look at the code and make sure you do understand it. For the most part, a lot of it is nothing but cut and paste and modify. All right? That's the beautiful thing now. I'm not kidding you. You know everything, but you just got to apply it. And we'll keep working on a couple of those as the course continues. All right? Good luck to you.